Live and learn. And on the edge of tomorrow.
Jeremy's gonna start. They're gonna hear you singing.
That's fine. I don't mind. They'll be like, "Oh, he's singing video game songs. That's good. It's good for the rep. We're good. We're good."
Oh my god, are you serious? Guys.
You got mad street cred in the back there, Liam. Holy cow.
Yeah. All over the place.
All right, we're live.
All right. We rolling.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the live stream. Today, we're going to be sitting down with RTA professors and graduate students to talk about development and creation of esports infrastructure at Ryerson. My name is Liam Parmar. I'm the president of Ryerson Esports. I'd like to start by welcoming any and all Ryerson students, esteemed industry professionals, students from other schools, as well as anyone joining us who is interested in both esports and Ryerson University. We sent out a survey earlier to Ryerson students to get an idea of what people are interested in as it relates to esports. We asked you, the Ryerson community, what your favorite esports titles were, and overwhelmingly, we found that you were interested in League of Legends, Counter-Strike, Overwatch, and Smash Ultimate. We received responses from a variety of Ryerson faculties, including TRSM, FEAS, FCAD, and FS. In this panel, we're going to be looking at the wants, needs, and realities of an esports infrastructure at Ryerson through the lens of questions from the survey. Now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce my panelists. Robin Kang, who's pursuing a Master's of Digital Media, Jeffrey LaChapelle, pursuing a Master's of Media Production, and Dr. Christopher Alexander.
Thank you so
Hi,
much.
everyone. So I'll start off. Hi, my name is Robin Kang, and I am a graduate student in the Masters of Digital Media program and the manager of the Ryerson Overwatch team, and also an executive member of the Toronto Overwatch Beer League. Today, I'm representing the MDM program's eSport group, and a lot of people ask, who is this group? So there's 4 of us, myself, Emily Lee, Stephen Grammer, and Matt Zyla. And how this all group started was with a class assignment. Last fall in our entrepreneur class, our whole assignment was based on creating this fake company, but having Ryerson students as our target audience. We chose to narrow down in the field of esports, and from there we did interviews, surveys, market research, and we realized what the students wanted was an esports space on campus. So for 3 months, we did more research and come up with the concept, with the business proposal and everything, so that we approached Ryerson faculty as a final checkoff to our assignment. And lo and behold, we met Dr. Christopher Alexander, who said, let's make it happen. So here we are, months later. Some of us are doing this as our final thesis project, and I could tell you right now, our group is doing a lot of the grunt work, from researching other collegiate esports programs, site visits, talking to the non-esports, non-gamers faculty members, educating certain groups why esports shouldn't just be given to the sports people to handle, writing reports, pitches, and so on and so forth, all to set up the stage for the higher ups at Ryerson to listen and to realize how important collegiate esport is. So very happy to be here, and I look forward to answering all the questions.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jeffrey LaChapelle. I'm an award-winning documentary producer. My most recent work was The Artists, a history of video games that was run on CBC Gem, that all of you can find online anytime you want to catch up on the history of games. I'm the director of esports at another major educational institution. I'm a college lecturer, and I'm an entrepreneur, most notably for co-founding a program called IQ Esports, a company that delivers essentially high school education through the use of video games. I'm here doing my Master's of Media Production here at Ryerson, and it's kind of my goal to create better opportunities for students across the board, both in the esports programs and just academically, to get a future in the esports world. And I've met both of these people through school at Ryerson, though to be fair to Chris, it was all the way back in undergrad almost 8 years ago now.
Yo, what games you playing, Jeffrey?
Oh, that's right. So I play a lot of different games. I was previously a nationally ranked Magic the Gathering player and a competitive Halo 3 player back in the day. Don't unfortunately get enough time to get up to that same level of skill in Runeterra, though that's eating most of my free time right now.
Cool. I guess that leaves me. Hello, my name is Dr. Christopher Alexander, professor of video games, design, broadcasting, and esports infrastructure at Ryerson University. I guess I'm notably known for being globally ranked in 2 video games, Street Fighter 3 Third Strike Online Edition in the on the PlayStation 3, as well as Light Seekers. And the more important thing is I've helped to establish one of Canada's first infrastructurally supported by faculty esports movements at a previous institution, which resulted in 8 teams, 2 of which were top 8 in North America, League of Legends and COD Blops 4. And I'm honored to be here today to take your questions and answer from the perspective of some of the realities that we have to face as an infrastructure issue here, not even issue, challenge here at Ryerson University.
Perfect. So yeah, why don't we just get started? So first question out, big one. Why is it important to talk about esports?
Robin, you
know, nice small question.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Start out easy.
I want to narrow it down to collegiate esports and just to compare us to the States and how far behind we are. How many in Ontario do we have of an esports program, like a college having an esports program? Whereas down in the States, they're making up the programs, they're giving out scholarships, they're having their own tournaments, making their own conferences, forming up their own team and rivalry. Where are we? Why are we not at the scene? And why are we lagging behind? Because we have just as good as players, we have the system, we're just not making it happen for some reason.
That's honestly a great point. And having put together one of the first scholarships here in Ontario through my previous institution, I can tell you it's not easy. And it wasn't anywhere in comparison to what some of the schools down in the States are able to provide to their students on an annual basis. Mm-hmm. And since my role today is to kind of talk about needs, I'd love to address this question in that perspective. Video games are getting bigger and bigger. They're now bigger than the film and music industry combined. And we have, just like Robin said, very little in terms of academics or education that allows us to understand video games better. We need to catch up. We need to adapt. And our schools need to create better pathways for students to grow into this industry as it gets bigger and bigger and time goes by.
So proud of y'all. Okay, so I'm supposed to talk from the realities perspective. And we know that esports are popular, but specifically in Canada, the job market involving video games has gone up 18% since 2017, and that's roughly totaling 48,000 jobs. And some of my research work here is trying to draw connections via the amount of games that students are playing and what programs that they're in. It's a grant that we're working on right now for a research project. And the point of that is so that we can show some of the faculty members how important it is for us to talk about video games and esports. So the reality standpoint is we've got to educate those who aren't part of the community, who don't necessarily know how big it is. And part of my mission is to do that via academic research and publication, but I can't do that without y'all. Does that answer the first question?
I think so. That's a pretty good answer. Yeah, so let's move on. So next up we have like, what could an esports space be? And this is from a student in TRSM retail management.
Oh man, my ideal space right now, and this is based on research, and like we asked the students in a survey too, like what do you guys want to see? And it's not just a PC center, it's to give out that atmosphere too of having a collegiate space. This is our space. And so we see a PC like a center, and not just in some basement at school, windowless and just a row of computer. We want it to be legit. And also another space for the console, like a console lounge. We envision that's another big part of esports, like the console space and different aspects of gaming. And also, why not have streaming booths? Like, we are a school, we're here to provide opportunities and to give like students a chance to test things out, not for a student to go buy all the latest equipment to try streaming and then what happens. And it's a school is a place to learn and to try, and in an esports space I want to give all of that and everything.
Additionally, and going off of that, it also needs to be a pathway to professionalism. And professionalism does not necessarily mean pro player. For most people, the vast majority of people, you'll play games just like you play sports. And just like sports, the percentage of people who make it pro is very, very low. But there's a huge, huge ecosystem of people who have different jobs and different work in the esports field that is essential for pro players to be able to operate, and are very viable careers in a variety of skills. Great examples being performance coaching, analytics, business. I know we've got a bunch of questions from the business school today. Things that allow you to do entrepreneurship in the esports space, a huge new space with lots of opportunities. All these things don't have anything to do with playing, but the play is essential for us to be able to learn any of it.
I like that. Now, the reality of the situation is now everybody watching this podcast or this live stream knows how big video games are right now, particularly in the midst of this pandemic. Think about what would happen if we opened up the space, how jam-packed it would be. Now, a reality is space is at a premium at Ryerson University. So if we were to find some kind of space, we have to start considering what's going to happen to the classroom space, which ties into Jeffrey's point. If we can establish curricular ties via research, then it's easier for us, for example, if we're looking at data analyzation, journalism, fashion, interior design, some of the programs out of FCAD, then you're looking at how we can use those spaces in downtime or uptime for classroom instruction that are directly related to the industry. But in order to make those curricular links, we've got to substantiate it with research so that we're not just saying League of Legends is cool, so we should have a space. This has to be something that's systemic, long lasting, that lasts for a very long time.
As true as League of Legends is cool, maybe.
And I have a follow-up questions very similar from the chat. So someone asked, do you believe it's more important that the infrastructure is designed to prepare collegiate esports competitors for professional play, or turn it into a broadcastable commodity in its own right?
Much more important that it be a broadcastable commodity. The industry around live stream, broadcast coverage, and more is a massive industry. Just the platform twitch.tv, which if you follow video games, you'll be aware of. And if you don't follow video games, highly recommend you just check it out while you're watching the show very briefly. But Twitch TV was purchased a few years ago, 4 years ago, and has gone from a $970 million valuation to an over $5 billion valuation in less than 5 years. Broadcast is an essential component of the industry, and I don't think we'll be able to train enough people into it in the coming years.
Absolutely. And to jump onto that in terms of the reality of the situation, there are pretty much very few curricular ties that don't stem into the video games industry and esport industries, and fostering that type of competition. For example, let's say there was a business school rivalry in the game that they, according to our survey, like the most. That's something that would be good for industry to come out to. And in the off time, you'd be asking business students, hey, yo, what are you in school for? They probably wouldn't say, yo, but you know what I'm saying. All right. Does that answer that question?
Yeah, I think so, actually. So, all right, moving on. What are we trying to achieve in the Ryerson space?
Oh, well, for me, we could be high level and think, oh, it's going to be in the new research space. It's going to be data producing. We're going to culture new talent. It's going to be the top level place for our teams to compete at. Or it could also be a casual space. It could be like your school gym. It could be your school coffee center. It's just the PC world is so integrated in our lives now, and why it could be a space for both is what I see. Somewhere prestigious and also somewhere casual for our students.
The big goal I would love to see achieved at a space would be an educational area strong enough that high-tier AAA industry companies want to partner with us in order to hire, train, educate. Essentially, such a breeding ground of talent and skill that anything we teach leads to jobs at the highest level in the industry through those relationships.
For me, we know that the average age of the esports player and video games enthusiast is between the age of 18 and 35. That's kind of our population at Ryerson. And I know that there needs to be a connection made in terms of legitimacy so that we can get more initiatives surrounding this. Okay. If you're looking at that statistic, most of you watching this program right now, y'all play games. Wouldn't it be great if at the infrastructure level that was matched in some way? You went to school for something and you're also working on something that moved your career forward. And we've seen this happen before at other institutions we've worked at.
Right. Yeah. All right. That basically answers that. Something from the chat though. Someone asked, what's holding us back from being able to offer scholarships? Is it just due to an old style of thinking or lack of understanding from faculty? Like, what's going on there?
In my mind, the hardest challenge, and it kind of speaks to a lot of possible issues around faculty, administration, et cetera, is evaluation. It's very easy to evaluate someone, for example, for a football scholarship. People who are the quarterback or the running back, playmakers. It's very easy to look at a game of football because we all know football to some extent. It's very easy to look at that and say, this person is very good at football. We can give them a scholarship. But now you have a new competition that the faculty in particular who would make those assessments have no comfortability with. And they have to take it as read from people who may or may not be reliable, that their skill is high enough that they merit a scholarship. And that's a really hard thing to go for. The other side of it is that scholarships in these competitive realms are often a recruitment tool. And if we don't have the facilities to foster, why would we be recruiting?
And Robin, did you want to hop in? You got
some of the things I've seen at the States, especially the smaller schools, the esports coach, he's giving a budget to give out scholarship. And we think sometimes some people may think scholarship, it's the full ride, but it could be as little as $1,000, $2,000 per term. And that's a good incentive to come join the school. So yeah, from the school perspective, it's to bring in that new students in. But again, what can we offer to the student? Like, why would the student choose us over a school who already has like a full program? What Jeff said, yeah.
Amazing. So the reality in my eyes is you're the human that asked that question. Thank you very much. You're obviously immersed in this realm in a way that has you asking that question. My counter question, which you may not be able to answer right now, would be, how do you explain how important it is based on your question to somebody who doesn't know about Twitch or play video games? It's very difficult. And now in this world of academia, in my view, substantiation comes from published research. So if you were to say, for example, TRSM, many of them overwhelmingly were into Legends of Runeterra, and there was a list of the top players from TRSM, and published studies about their interest in moving toward either professionalism in what they're going to school for or in the esports realm, it'd be easier for us to point and say, hey, I know you may not know about this, but look at this published study. Look at the numbers in this particular population that speak towards why it's necessary for us at the infrastructure level to consider scholarships for video games and esports.
All right. Yeah, I think that's a pretty good answer. And I guess going on the topic of money, next up we have how would this space be funded and why would it get funded? Our teams aren't necessarily distinct within collegiate esports, beside maybe the League of Legends team. What steps do you think we need to take to have esports taken more seriously at Ryerson, like on campus?
So what I see is some people think, okay, a sponsor's going to come in and they're going to sponsor a team and put their logo on the jersey and that's it. But I don't think the student population realize the buying power that they have over these companies. So what's setting the students, the undergrads, apart from high school? So undergrads, you are now in this position where you might be doing your biggest purchases. So even renting your new home, buying furniture, doing groceries, you're entering into another life stage where you're making those purchasing decisions, and the companies want you to buy their brand. They want their brands or logos to be in front of your eyes. So when you go out and do your first purchase, you are getting that brand and you are going to be loyal to them. So a company funding or investing in Ryerson Esports, it means that their brand is in front of your spaces. It means like they are putting this positive attribute to the space and you are going to correlate that feeling to their brand. So that's what I see, more than just slapping a logo onto a jersey. And what steps do we need to take this more seriously? Jeff?
I'm on it. What we need, unfortunately, and fortunately, is we need effective pathways that draw that line from the school to these companies in a way that is mutually beneficial. Because you got the school, as much as, they'd love to have whatever partnerships, part of the challenge is that we have students whose identities we need to protect. We have to keep a positive culture. The school itself needs to operate in some capacity towards the benefit of the students always. And so it's not enough to just take whatever money gets thrown at us. We need to find active participating partners who will offer something that's mutually beneficial to the school as well. Now, finding that, yeah, sorry, Chris, go for it. I know you got a good follow-up.
Okay. So we'll go back again to substantiation. If we're looking at funding for a particular movement, and we had the numbers of out of the entire 40,000 student population at Ryerson, which students in which departments played which games and which program, I already said that, which programs they're taking, what years they're in, this type of data. And we were able to say to a potential sponsor, hey, your product is great because this program totaling this many students with this type of coverage via these events that they're going to or have been put on, I can see that's going to have a lot of sticking power for your contribution to the movement and the infrastructure of esports. But again, it's very tough to convince humans to invest in something that technically, if they're outside of that demographic of 18 to 35, they may not be aware of its potency. So again, research, we are an academic institution. The publication, the substantiation through numbers is going to help. And I'm fairly certain that once my proposal gets past research ethics and y'all see the survey, after watching this, you're going to be like, yo, we better tell Dr. Christopher Alexander what it is we want, because we are literally trying to build this for you, but we need substantiation in order to do so.
And that speaks to the other really important thing, which is that it's different for every company. What excites for example, a Red Bull, which is very active in esports, what excites them versus what excites a professional esports team are very different things. And so we need to be able to try and create broad data that'll allow us to have conversations with many different people. Lots of irons in the fire.
Right. I see in the chat that it sounds like a lot of people in the chat are wanting to become pro esport athletes. And I'm going to be real with you. If you're going to be a pro, fun fact, you're going to be a pro. You're talking to globally ranked people right now, and the infrastructure is not going to hold you back. What's important is that we start to create a systemic infrastructure that lasts for hopefully your time here, but beyond your time here. So yes, we respect the path to pro, but we also respect that this movement needs to last for a long time. So that's part of what it is we're trying to achieve here. Just tackling one of the chat questions real quick. Sorry, Liam, I didn't mean to take that away from you.
No, that's fine. And I guess something similar that chat question is, for students considering a career in esport athlete, like support, I guess, talent management, what are some of the ways that they can connect and support the esports community at Ryerson?
I mean, there's huge applicability in terms of physical health maintenance and athletics. So put it simply, I could show you 101,000 different academic papers that correlate people's physical fitness, rest, and nutrition with their test scores in academia. Essentially, the better health you're in, the better you think. Well, guess what? Video games are mostly cognitive. So if you're in good shape, you will perform better. This is understood to the point at the pro level, to the point where every pro team, Team Liquid, G2, etc., has mental health and physical health performance experts on every single one of their teams, as well as nutritionists and a host of other support staff. If you can find it in the pro sports world in terms of support, you can deliver it in the esports world.
Robin, did you want to go? Because I got some whenever you're done.
No, go ahead.
So once again, that's going to boil down to curriculum. For example, in our brand new law program, I happen to be connected to a law firm that have esports and video games lawyers as part of their practice. This is a curricular tie that would be absolutely relevant to anybody that plays video games or has an interest in the video games realm in the law program. It's about creating those curricular ties as substantiation for the movement, so that, let's say you're in TRSM and you're working on business proposals. Well, perhaps your business proposal, similar to what Robin does and many of her superpowers, is establishing at the curricular and educational level what it is you want to be in the space, substantiated and or of course supported by curriculum. That's the goal, a holistic approach to the integration of video games and esports at the curricular, academic, and publication level, so that you can come in and say, hey, I'm a business student. I'm a hardcore Street Fighter 3 Third Strike player. Just kidding. I don't know if that's going to be a thing. And And you can see I have the Ryerson logo, and I also have the logo of my school on my back. And these are the partners that are helping me get through from my specific lane. That's how huge I know this can grow.
Cool. And yeah, so I guess there's one big question that everyone always asks, and what's the time frame? How long is this gonna take?
I love that one. Yo, Robin. Okay, yo, Jeffrey, watch me. Spoiler alert, okay? Watch me.
I'm going to pre-spoiler you. That's just like, go ahead, Robin.
That's like just a small example. Setting up one meeting can take 2 weeks. And from that one meeting, it's like an informational meeting. So, but that's one sample of how long it could take sometimes and why it's taking it so slow.
And in the wise words of a good friend of mine and co-runner of the educational institution where I've been directing for the last 2 years, one Miss Jackie O'Manor, moving at the speed of bureaucracy is a very real thing. There's a lot of people who all need to be notified of each step of each decision. And that means that even though you might make a decision in a meeting, it's often tricky for people like Robin, Chris, and I to go out and say, oh, we decided to do this, because that decision has to get passed up the chain 2, 3, 4 times before it's affirmed. So we might actually already be doing it by the time we have the final approvals to know that we're doing it. And so that can be difficult. And that means while a meeting can take 2 weeks, well, the meeting to discuss the results of the last meeting also takes 2 weeks. And it can mean that a decision can take up to 1.5 months to 2 months to actually come to fruition.
Yeah. And the reality of the situation is there are few of us on the inside that are familiar with this realm enough. And as mentioned before, a lot of the initial process, and this is a lot of what Robin, Jeffrey, and myself have been up to, is educating the major players across all realms, including sponsorship, support, all these things we're describing, to get them to understand why this is something of significance. The numbers are great, but I've done things like, I'll say in a meeting that right now, at least 20,000 people are watching one person play a game in their basement. They're like, huh? And then I open up Twitch and I show them, and they're like, yo, but that's not something you're going to recover from right away. You got to be like, okay, well, what does that mean? There's this whole educational layer to it that I know, since you know it's important, it doesn't mean that everybody knows it's important yet. And that's part of the education. And that's part of why it may not be moving fast enough for what most people want. It is absolutely not a snapping thing. Also, I just got here, yo. I'm not even finished my first year back at Ryerson University, and I think we're moving incredibly quick. But a lot of times we're
example, though.
Yeah, go.
Careful spoilers.
I
didn't do anything, did I?
So no, you're good. I'm sorry. Robin was going to give an example. That was all. Sorry, Robin, go for it.
Yeah. So why is the state's colleges moving so fast? And let me tell you, for some states, esports is very normalized in the everyday world, like California. Esports professional scene is very normalized there. And so some of the colleges, when they have their open houses and these high school kids are coming in and asking, oh, I love your gym, but I also want to see what's your esports program. And the colleges are like, oh, we don't have any. The high school kids leave. So some colleges, they understand, they get it, and they work fast. The admins know the numbers and admission, that's their talk, and they see it, and there's proof. But some other states, it's not normalized, so they don't see it. So it's the back of their mind. So we're at this weird state where in between, is our culture in Ontario, is esport normalized in the everyday lives or not?
It's rapidly getting there, but the second problem that comes into this, and it's tied in completely to what you're saying, is that schools in the States have so many more students and so much more operating capital to work with. There's so much more money floating around individual, especially the big Ivy League US schools. And so they have more essentially monetary freedom to just hire 5 people, say, here's $100,000, play, go do whatever.
But the small schools, it's like they set up the program and it's just hiring one person, an esports coach, giving them 6 rows of computers, and that's the program. So honestly, sometimes you hear, oh yeah, down in the States, they're setting up programs, but it might not be what you think it is.
A wise woman once told me that esports is the new college football. And you know who that woman was? It was Robin Kang, yo. And I think that it's a bit of a game that we're playing here, pun intended, to try and explain to people Robin's wise statement. Esports is the new college football.
And just quickly to piggyback off that, someone asked in chat if this coronavirus stuff is going to delay it at all. Is it going to be affect on what we're doing?
You want me to tackle? Who wants me to?
Yes,
So
please, Chris.
I mean,
You want me to
I'll
go,
lead, and that'll
Okay,
give
yeah.
you the spoiler shield to talk.
Okay.
So overall, the nice thing about working at a media school and discussing is that any meetings that do occur can occur just like this. And it's something everybody in a media school is much more familiar with than might be the fact otherwise. So any progress that's being made, any discussions that are happening are continuing just remotely in much the same setting that you're seeing now.
I was going to say that recently I've been contacted by CNN, CTV, Global Radio, and this pandemic has asked for a lot of humans to sit down and just no longer assume that video games is just all shoot 'em ups and that esports is just something that's going to pass. People have taken a serious look at video games and esports. And as a result, this education that I was hoping for as a result of the pandemic is happening because, and I'm sure you've been seeing what's been happening in the pro scene with regard to how some companies, Dota 2, they're not necessarily being as affected because a lot of their dealings have been online. So that is my answer before Jeffrey has to cut me off and say, stop talking.
The coronavirus has put in the general sphere of the world, has put the opportunities of video games as an online, socially safe activity, put them in the spotlight. And so the hope is that as time goes by, much like Chris is saying, that's going to create a feedback loop of enthusiasm going forward. Whether or not that's a reality, well, we'll save for Chris's next realities conversation in another presentation.
Flame. Okay, there's a question in the chat. It said that esports is trickling into many programs and courses around Ryerson. Will the plan be to bring all of this under one umbrella, or will these areas exist in their respective departments? I think, okay, all right. So my response to that is whatever you're feeling inside is exactly what I'm also hoping for.
It's good. That's good.
I mean, yeah, sure. Let's I guess we'll continue talking about education and courses. So someone said, I guess you could respond to this. I don't necessarily think that there should be gaming related courses, but I do think that courses which look into sports, for example, sports and media, should also look into esports, given how big it has become over the past few years. Like, you have a response to that?
I do. In certain parts of the UK, the government does research to find out what games are on the up and up and what games there are available in particular markets. And as I mentioned off the top, there is an increase in jobs in video games and esports right now. And if we publish those numbers and we look at those numbers and compare them to the fantastic programs we have at Ryerson University and say, hey, these are where the jobs are. For example, I speak to AAA companies fairly frequently and ask them year by year, hey, what are y'all hiring for? One year I was told network coding. Okay. One year I was told project management. Another year I was told event management. And these are different companies. So if we get that information and we explain it to program directors and say, hey, these companies who we're working with through the research that we're doing, they're willing to hire your grads. And that, I'm not suggesting at the outset, it could be a couple of conversations, but there should be congruent curriculum that matches the jobs that are available, because some students are being told that there are no jobs. I'm telling you that video games jobs in Canada are going up statistically. Check out the ESACs. So it would be useful to find out where the parallels are between what they're taking in school and what jobs are readily available in the video games market, particularly in Canada.
It's also really important to recognize that it's not just a matter of having an esports class, in the same way that it's no more valid to have a sports class. That doesn't help anybody.
No.
The different skill sets change depending on what you're doing. If you're covering journalism in the esports space, then that is a completely different skill set than it is to be a coach or to be a broadcaster. And so if education is going to be effective at the college level, it has to be more than the general esports course. While the general esports course is really useful for giving people an introduction into an opportunity to work in the field. A lot of people might not appreciate that you can have a job in all these different things. They might just see video games and go, well, I don't play, so I'm out of the loop.
All right, yeah, let's move on then.
Okay.
So question, would there be courses available that are related to gaming, like game dev or game design, or and could there be more esports related courses not in RTA, such as the business side and TRSM? I guess you already talked about that, but
We did. That would be the plan. But again, with that, it would take conversations with the individual faculties and departments to, one, express the importance. Well, first of all, establish a meeting. Second of all, sit
2
down
weeks.
and explain via statistics the importance, and then talk about actual implementation. Luckily, I have a PhD in curriculum development involving video games. So that's something that I'm willing to do and have been doing in FCAD thus far. So, and somebody asked about game design. Yo, I teach a game design class, yo. Anyway, so yeah, that's my answer to that question. And remember, we're thinking holistically here. So yes, whatever program that question came from, yes, in your specific discipline, we're looking for ties because there are jobs in that sector for you. Sorry, in your specific field aligned in the video games realm and esports.
cool.
Very quickly, very simply, we also need demand. So if you guys want programming, say so. Talk to the school.
Yeah,
write in letters.
Or with the research that we're conducting, respond, we publish, we say this is what's up in an academic institution.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? We're trying to help y'all, yo. We're trying to help substantiate, legitimize the movement. That's the goal.
All right, so I guess we can move on to something I'm really interested in is specifically collegiate esports.
Yes.
So what would Ryerson's approach to esports be? And as in, what would you continue to keep doing matches on TESPA, or would you possibly be interested in creating a Canadian university exclusive format?
So that's
Yo, Robin, you want to start?
Yeah.
Jeffrey, I may not be able to talk on this one, but okay, go, Robin. Go.
Well, what I like, because I'm talking about the wants.
Yeah.
And what I'm seeing down in the States, and they're forming their own conferences and tournaments and rivalry and statewide competitions. And we are not there and we don't have that. Yes, I would love to see a Canadian university exclusive tournaments and not always just be following the States and what they're doing and trying to coattail on their competitions. Like, we have top tier teams here, and
yes, we
need
do
to cultivate that, but we need the infrastructure to be able to do that. Right now, all our top tier teams are just club based. There's no coaches, there's no funding, there's no, everyone's using their own computer, own PC, whichever level of that PC may be. We have a lot of barriers, and we need to first create that infrastructure and make people realize we are a talented hub and we need to invest.
And I think you've addressed a little bit of that need in that standardization and infrastructure is important. And what I think is useful is that I think this is an opportunity where we can learn from other institutions that have done this. There are a bunch of institutions in Ontario that have training spaces that have standardized stuff. One particular student that Chris and I worked with a lot when we were doing our stuff was a student named Kevin Tang, who's been essential in the esports industry here in Ontario at the student level, and creating standardizations for how students are developed, how talent is developed, and how practice and competition is done is huge. The previous institution that Chris and I both worked at has a longstanding rivalry now of 2 years in Call of Duty with 2 schools in New York State. And so it can come from that, but at the core of it, we need that infrastructure. Everything you've pointed out from the wants are essential in order for us to reach that.
Jeffrey, cut me off if I go too far. I am interested in a reality where we have multiple programs participating in tournaments. What do
internally, you mean?
Internally.
That would be cool. That would be a cool idea.
Think about it. We have one of the strongest project management programs, event management, hospitality, business, fashion, interior design. All of these programs, if we could come together underneath an annual movement, think about how powerful that would be, both from the broadcast level, talking about RTA now, but in terms of all of the curricular roles that would lead up to that moment. That's what we're talking about with regard to infrastructure. Holistically, the whole time you're learning about what you're learning through a lens that you're excited about, and there's a practical application for it.
If that feels exciting to you, do a survey. Let us know.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, okay. I'm not gonna.
That's your cutoff, Chris. That's
Okay, I got you.
All right.
Somebody asked a question. Hold on.
Yeah.
Somebody asked a question in the chat.
Yeah.
They're saying, what determines whether a game will have a team on a school's collegiate esports program? What does it come down to, popularity and demand, or is it more than that? Fantastic. What are some of the current individual team needs for the first question? What will determine whether a game or a team will have? In our previous institution, we ran a survey to find out what the hottest games were among the student body. And we took the top 8, and those were the teams. We were not guessing. And that's exactly what we're trying to do here. Survey the 40,000 population, find out what games they are, take the top 8, pow, those are your teams. Why are we going to pick games that students here aren't playing? Doesn't make any sense. Again, substantiated decisions, but we need the data in order to make those decisions.
The other side of it that's really important, and then I'm just going to throw to you two to just go ham with, is that we also need student leaders who are willing to put in that work. It's not just enough to say, yeah, this game's great, so we're just going to have it. When we ran that survey, we actually ended up canceling 2 teams because there were no students that were mature and driven enough to meet the expectations for performance and all the output that we were doing at the school. So it's got to be both of those.
Yeah,
go for it.
And to jump on what Jeffrey just said, part of what we've previously done is find out what the interest is, find out who the hungriest students are, and work with the institution to create jobs for those students. Can you imagine? Jeffrey referenced Kevin Tang. Kevin Tang heard about what I was trying to do. He helped me put together the survey, spoke to all of the clubs, and we got data within hours from the community. You know how we are. We love games. We're trying to get it popping. Afterwards, I said, Kevin, can you stop doing work because you're going in too hard? I need you to get paid for what you're doing. I told him to look on a website that posted esports jobs and find his equivalent. He did that. We made a job description and created roles. Wouldn't it be great if there was a field-specific job related to what you're in school for that you would get paid to do, playing toward the movement? That's exactly what we're trying to do, but we need substantiated data in order to do so. I sound like a broken record. Okay, Jeffrey, go.
That website is called hitmarker.com.
Yeah, I don't want to say it, yo. I don't work for them. Hitmarkerjobs.com, yo. Okay. Check it out. Honestly, if you go to that website, type in your discipline and look at all the jobs. Hitmarker Jobs is literally LinkedIn video games and esports jobs. And when you go to that site, people are like, oh my goodness, all these jobs? Yes, all these jobs. Next question.
Oh, good
Hitmarker,
related.
please sponsor us.
I got a good related bit to this. Does it have to be just driven students, or can it be motivated recent graduates?
Yo, whoa, hold on. Say that again. Say that question again. Hold on.
Does it have to be just driven students, or can it be motivated recent graduates?
Yo, you're talking to 2 humans that are about to graduate inside of this talk, man. Like, this is not the love is real. You know, most people looking at this are so excited about what potential there is that many people, what I'm seeing in the chat right now, are like, wow, I can't believe this is how far along we've gotten. I'm not going to say no. Think about it. If we had a section that was for alumni and it was sponsored in some way by some of our partners, think about how magical that would be. A full holistic, listen, I graduated, but I really want to come back and contribute to the movement. That's the kind of stuff we're looking for. I don't know if that answers your question. Y'all got me hyped right now. Okay, go ahead, Robin.
Yeah, just like how in Toronto there are rec leagues, I don't see why there could be esports rec league. So you're not a top tier player, but you love the competition. You want to be in the team setting. You don't want to solo queue. You want to be part of a rec league. Like, I don't see why Ryerson can't be the host of that if we have the infrastructure.
You could maybe even call them intramurals. And so one of them, so someone asked in chat, the University of Waterloo is adding esports to intramurals for the upcoming school term to have instead of traditional sports because of COVID and all that. Yep. What are your thoughts on making it a permanent addition to intramurals? Like, is that something you guys are interested in? Talking athletics, like?
So we've had fantastic support from athletics, and Liam, I'm going to throw to you so you can talk about your fantastic experience. We do have love from athletics, and this is great. Here's a case study. Go ahead, Liam. Do your thing.
All right.
Very gentlemanly of you to put it to us.
Yeah. So myself, I'm president of Ryerson Esports. We are a competitive athletic club on campus. That means we're not quite varsity level, but we are involved with athletics. Like, we get to use like Ryerson Rams branding, things like that, as you can see right here. Yeah. So what that means for us is that, like, because of all this coronavirus COVID stuff, we are in a unique position to expand ourselves and sort of be prove our importance to Ryerson and prove how much we can do and how many people are involved and how many people are interested in this type of thing. And yeah, that's definitely something that we are looking into. I don't know like how, like at what level or when that might happen, but it's something that we are interested in, and I really want it to happen.
Amazing. You just made me think of a survey question. One of the survey questions I should add to the survey is, what role do you see yourself playing given your department in the video games world, just so we can get that data and get people to start researching where they could see themselves based on what they're in school for in the video games and esports realm. Hey.
And yeah, it's not just the players who are playing the game. There's so many aspects to esports, the broadcasting, the casting, the video recording, and the management, team scheduling, and the events. There's so many aspects to it that people don't really understand. And we're at the stage where we're educating again and again and again to the non-gamers, to this faculty, what it takes. Yeah. It's not just easy just saying, oh, let's play a game. It's not like that.
Yeah. There's one. Yeah. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
I was just going to say, just a thought on that was, as at a universal level, the general sports faculties across Ontario are becoming more aware and interested in esports. I can't speak directly within Ryerson, both because that A, would be spoilers, and B, we haven't had any concrete like commitment from there or anything like that. No, but at a broad level, colleges and universities are becoming much more excited about esports, and a lot more push is happening trying to explore that.
Okay, so fantastic. There's another question in the chat. Apparently that's been spammed quite a few times, so let's try and tackle it. What is the relationship like between collegiate esport programs and game developers, e.g. Riot and Blizzard? What can Riot and Blizzard and collegiate esport programs learn from each other? Oh, you guys go. I'm ready. You guys go. Go.
Robin, please.
I feel like, again, the student having the buyer power and having the influence of how a game can turn out. Like we're just in a very good space. All collegiate, all university colleges are in a good space, and they have the population that the games are looking for. And it's the access to us that they're looking for. But we have to be strategic in when some ways too. We can't just be like, yes, come to us. We can't just be, we're available. We need to be strategic.
It's also very difficult because as tournament organizers, be it at the collegiate level or the professional level, publishers have to keep colleges at an arm's length. They can create the tournaments. They can do lots of stuff to create effective tournament structures. A lot of companies like Riot have built really strong collegiate tournament structures. However, if they provide any financing to those schools, then they're a tournament organizer and a financier providing financing to one school. It's conflict of interest. So ideally, one day, what would be brilliant, and maybe even a need, would be for any school, any publisher of a reasonable size, be it Epic, Riot, etc., that's making enough money, actually kicks a small stipend to every college that participates, so that it incentivizes colleges to compete in their tournaments and provides the colleges with a baseline of revenue in order to actually build the tech to access those tournaments as well.
Now, Jeffrey, get ready to cancel me if I go too far. What's going on right now, to respond to the question from a reality standpoint, is we need to establish legitimacy when we're talking to these companies that you mentioned in the chat. Yes. How are Riot and Blizzard able to judge which programs, which universities should be entitled or have access to some of the things that Robin and Jeffrey mentioned? Well, one of the answers is legitimacy and substantiation. It's not enough for us to say, oh, we're good in games, so give us the money. They're going to want to see why. Everybody's looking for substantiation as to why they need to participate. And we need to do some more understanding of and detailing and conversations like this, so that when people look at it, they're like, oh, whoa, I didn't know that there were so many people signed up for this first chat. I didn't know that there were so many conversations. This is part of it. We want to know who you are. And if, like, for example, previous institutions have made YouTube pages to help talk to these different companies that you mentioned and show that both we have the talent, we have the production, and we have the infrastructure that lends to participation in your space. Jeffrey, did I do all right there?
You did great. I'm liking this survey smokescreen. It's good.
Okay. Okay. Shield.
All right. Yeah. I mean, I guess so related to that, our next question is, will Ryerson Esports teams get funding?
Yeah.
I
hope so.
Ideally.
Ideally, yeah, I would think so.
Yeah, the want is absolutely yes.
Yeah.
The need is we need money. And then the reality is we don't have money.
We need money. Yeah.
Jeffrey, just assume all 3 rows. You got it. That's good. Perfect.
Next question. No.
Yeah, next question. No, honestly, that seems pretty all right.
True. Like, and again, if we were to get some kind of commitment, that would be something we would love to entertain. And that again would go part and parcel with how many students are playing these top games. Okay, well, maybe we should consider how that funding should be allocated in terms of resources, or will it be all teams get the same? This is part of the conversations we're going to have, but we can't have those conversations unless we have the numbers. All right.
From experience as a director on that note, giving out money to individual players is very, very difficult. Students are not professional players. They're students. You very rarely get paid to compete on any varsity sports team. So I would caution people from making that an expectation. Don't expect to make money in college playing esports. That's not what college is for. College is for you to learn. That being said, in addition to the challenges of paying players, there's also priorities that we have to satisfy first. We have to have play spaces. We need communal areas, classrooms. We need broadcast centers. We need all these other things that we've discussed in this call before, even just streaming spaces that are mutual and communal for everybody to use. Those service a lot more people than just individual players at a much lower cost. And maintaining those, updating them, and keeping them competitive is a huge drain on resources. So we would have to be very, 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 very successful before we'd be able to pay any player, any student to compete in a League of Legends game.
And that's not to say if you're fire enough on one of our teams, you can't have your own Twitch streaming channel and do the thing on the side. That's not to say that that's an impossibility. You know that there are a minimum of 5 ways to make money on Twitch if you're that good. Sometimes, maybe even if you're not that good.
Yeah, and a question from chat just related to this: how might Ryerson make their team and/or streamers more marketable than another institution so that sponsors would be driven to invest in Ryerson's?
That's a great question.
Yo, am I allowed to answer that? But yo, you guys go.
Yeah, Robin, do you have a wants on that front?
What I want is for students to feel Ryerson is almost like a talent agency, and we bring the sponsors to you, the students, and you get to pick and choose. That's what I want.
Yeah, and what we need in order to facilitate exactly that is we need administrative and faculty backing and engagement. So we need not just student-created Twitter feeds doing engagement and discussion, but if a team, the League of Legends team, the Rocket League team, whoever, wins a tournament at any level, that needs to be in the FCAD newsletter. That needs to be in the Ryerson newsletter.
Yes.
We need engagement at a fact, much like this talk was carried by a lot of the major Ryerson faculty channels and has gotten amazing optics. And it's got a bunch of wonderful people watching us and asking questions and engaging in the chat. Thank you very much for taking part. But this is a perfect example of what we need at a universal level in order to deliver on what we're talking about in Watts.
And my response is very simple. Robin and Jeffrey have made this part of their academic mission in addition to their passion and love. When you have people that are so into it that they are finding ways to integrate it into their path of study, magic. Because not only is it getting substantiated at the academic level, but at the practical level as well. And if you go through school and you say, man, I did this project as part of my master's and it became a reality, imagine what that's going to do for optics. And if that bleeds back into the program and broadcast facilities that you're hoping for and wanting for get built, and you're out there and you're looking good, that's how we promote you. You're hot fire, and you tell everybody what you're taking in school and how it relates to industry. It's a marketing tool for you and your superpowers at the same time, academic superpowers and video game superpowers. We know most gamers wear 2 hats. We know most gamers are doing fantastically well in school. And we're going to be putting in measures to ensure that you focus on your studies as part of your gameplay and esports participation at the school.
I have a perfect follow-up from the chat. question for that. How would you encourage new people to esports programs? How would you encourage new people to esports programs to young people with quote unquote ignorant parents who think esports is just playing games, more so to people applying from high school? And what would you say to these kids to convince their parents to help them, to let them join the program?
I got a big answer for this one, but you guys go first.
Robin. We got to go in order, yo. Robin.
Well, down in the States, the esport coaches who are in colleges, what they found is surprising is how much calls they get from high schools to come and talk to high school students. And it's to set up the realities, and it's not just playing games. There's training, there's practice time, there's commitment, and all that, just breaking it down to realities. And that's what's really happening down in the States, is what I'm saying.
So I'm going to make this an anecdote, a personal anecdote, and particularly shout outs because I bet he's watching. But my dad was a hardcore sports player, lacrosse in particular, played, coached, etc. And growing up, it was a big battle of school versus games and all of that. And it definitely went back and forth. And it wasn't until I got into the later years of my undergrad and Twitch purchase had happened, the big League of Legends Worlds events had started picking up, and we sat down and we watched a world championship match. And there were commentators, and there was color commentary, there was an analyst desk, and the people were using all the language that he knew from professional sports. And in that moment, I think it made a lot more sense to him. And you can confirm this for me, Dad, if you're watching later. But at its core, what needs to happen is legitimization in a way that parents can understand. And it's challenging because different parents will understand in different ways. Some parents are only concerned about their kids having a pathway to career. Other people want to know, is this going to help in some other way? Is this developmentally beneficial? Which it absolutely is. But it's about answering those questions in ways that are broad. And that, how we do that, there's a lot of realm for creativity. And Chris and I have done media production in the past. Chris and I have spoken to government institutions like the CRTC. Those things help creating content. And Chris has a wonderful show that I'm sure he's going to mention in his answer. And I'm going to tee up for him now. Oh, now you have to. Sorry.
Okay, so substantiation is key. I've already said that part. I've created a show. It's called It's a Parent, where we take video game based questions from parents and answer them in 30 seconds. Now, I've got a lot of calls from parents saying, oh, my kid does this, my kid does this, and I answer. But to your point, two answers. If we can say to parents, look, all these students play the game that your child plays. These are the programs they're in. This is how successful they are, kicking back into our KPIs, our key performance indicators, and the numbers that show how well our graduates do at Ryerson University. You can show parents that, but more importantly, if scholarships come in and you're like, yo, what's your ELO? Oh, you might be the top of the class. Hey, mom and dad. Hey, dad and dad. Hey, mom and mom, check this out. Your child is going to be eligible for this amount of money because they play this game. And I think the parents might just cut you off and be like, nah, we're good. Okay, my kid is going there. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, it's a situation where now we have a job to educate some of the parents, to explain to them that there is both an academic and in some cases potentially financial benefit to the movement.
Yeah. Perfect. That's a great answer to my question. Thank you very much. So next up, what benefits would the clubs, that being Ryerson Esports and like esports clubs on campus, what benefits would the clubs, once the space is available, what would they get? Will it be partnered with both clubs, or what would be the solution there?
I don't think I got the question. Sorry.
Sorry. There's I think and correct me if I'm wrong, Liam, but there's a bit of a presumptive in terms of the space, which might make this difficult to answer.
Yeah.
So like I guess the question would need to be rephrased, but I'm not really sure how to rephrase that so that
I think we're just recognizing there's two clubs at Ryerson, one recreational and one competitive, and the space will be formed by informed decisions and doing surveys and research, and it's not going to be coming just from top down. It's very going to be inclusive. So when the time comes to forming a space and getting input from students, we won't know until we get there.
Yeah, and it also comes to the needs. Is we need to know who our partners are, what resources do we have available, physically, where are we going to put it? and something we haven't, I think, addressed in the talk today, but we kind of obliquely did. But the challenge of, if we're going to build a space, Ryerson has a finite amount of real estate. Anywhere we put a space, were we to build one, it would have to be an opportunity cost elsewhere. So they lose classroom space, they lose gym space, they lose library room. Like wherever this thing gets put, something else is lost in order to facilitate it. And that's a big challenge.
That's it. You covered the realities too. I have one question though that I'm excited from the chat, and that is, how can esports activity be shown to benefit Ryerson's most important key performance indicators to students, their clients, and governments, an important funder? Fantastic question, because it sounds like I'm going to start off as a broken record. If I can get those KPIs and I can survey the student population, find out what their grades are, find out what games they're like, then I can draw those connections and publish those connections as a method of explaining what the direct link between the games they play, the program, how long they've been in the program, what their average grades are, and how that will pan out both from a job acquisition standpoint as well as academic success. That's how that activity can be done. So we've got to create what needs to happen to support at an infrastructure level, and we've got to be able to do research in that space to help pull answers to that question. But having humans that are interested in allowing us to ask these questions and ask the students this question are paramount in this entire thing moving forward. I hope that answers the question. But yo, Robin and Jeff, I stepped out of turn. My bad.
No, you answered that correctly. And Chris, you're one person at Ryerson, right? On the faculty level. And we have to create this demand and from the student population to really get the other faculty members from the higher ups to make things more happen faster.
Yeah.
You know, I appreciate that you said that, Jeffrey. You do your thing, man. Do your thing.
No, that's it. Like in much the same way, she hit the needs on the head right there too.
I'm so happy that you said that, Robin. Thank you so much. It's not, I know that I'm not alone completely, but you have to remember that it's a complex mission. I'm telling you right now, I am a hardcore video game player. Go look at replays online. I've been globally ranked in 2 games. There are a lot of stereotypes that come with that when I come into a room trying to educate people. I get a lot of eye rolls. I get a lot of pushback. On the other side, there are a lot of people who think they know the space because it's similar to other industries. Oftentimes, there's a disconnect there. So getting past that barrier is tough. And as Robin mentioned, it's very difficult. It's very difficult to not throw your hands up and be like, yo, I'm globally ranked in video games. I know what competitive play is like. What are we talking about here? Can you please just, you know what I'm saying? So it's an incredible journey. And when we have incredible situations like this that we can help articulate and have people be like, oh, wow, it's not an instant thing. You and your crew and your esports, all of your fam in the video games world, the community of which the 3 of us are also a part of, we get it. But now we have to bring often non-endemic players in to explain to them the potency and why this needs to be done in a very particular way. We cannot necessarily take models that have functioned in other areas, as Jeff and Robin have said previously, and just slap it into esports. The community will sniff it out immediately. That's it.
It's also important that there are people who are supporting this, but they just don't understand. And events like this educate them. And it's an ongoing thing. So while we're having these meetings, we've had meetings and email chains where we've done a follow-up or we've produced some material, and the pushback where we've provided statistics, and the pushback from other faculty is just, these statistics just don't seem right. And then we provide the background, and it's just a moment of, and then things change. And it's just a matter of people like when Chris and I worked at the previous institution, there was one meeting where we sat down 2 of the head faculty from the department down in a room and just showed them stuff.
It was Worlds. It was the AR Dragon flying in for Worlds, I think 2017.
Yeah, 2017. And they were just destroyed. And we just kept showing them things, and they kept getting more destroyed. And then the conversation was over. It's
education is key, folks. Education is key. That's what we're trying to do here. Yeah. Robin, did you have something?
No, that's
okay.
Me.
All right.
Yo, Liam, how you doing? You all right?
I'm good. I have another question for you.
Okay.
In the event that student-hosted events or streams become profitable, how might that be reconciled with Ryerson's investment? Would all proceeds be passed forward to involve students, or would that go somewhere else?
I like these questions. Yo, we got to do
Great
this again, man. These questions
Yeah,
are
these
fire.
are awesome.
Go ahead,
Well,
Robin.
I could tell you in the States again, some of these colleges, they have to set up their own Twitch channels, and coaches are finding, wow, we're earning, the Amazon Prime dollars. And it's like the colleges hold that back for some reason. So there's a lot of these new elements when it comes to esports and colleges and building an infrastructure that we have to explore. And it's nice that the states are doing it first, and they're testing things out, and we don't need to recreate the wheel in some ways. And we'll see when we get there. But yeah, there's a lot of unknown elements and a lot of them are small things too that we have to explore.
The simplest way to put it, the simplest need is Ryerson has very strict rules about how it's allowed to take in revenue. And so we need to build a channel within the school that handles that revenue from the school. If it's entirely student driven, then we need channels that separate that out. Like we need rules that separate those channels out. It's very difficult. It's very difficult.
And that's why we're using the wording of infrastructure. It has to be systemic, because there's so many rules and regulations in place that we need to respect and follow. But a lot of it, since we're coming from the community side of things, it's also education for us as well. A lot of some of the things that we've mentioned as barriers are often educational sessions for us as well. Like, yo, you can't just do that. You can't just open up a stream. Oh, word? I didn't know that. So that's part of, it's two-way educational. We have what we know is a hot industry. We have this already established infrastructure. How can we bridge those two to create a successful esport infrastructure that is profitable to both the students and the academic institution at the same time, while promoting the real reason why people are there, to learn and to educate themselves?
All right. That's all the questions that we had written. Let me check if there's anything else from the chat quickly. Nice. Question for Robin specifically. Are there any elements that these institutions, the US or otherwise, have implemented that could work in developing Ryerson Esports program, like particular things? I guess they're asking.
So my research right now is esports coaching. And right now what I'm doing is there are no studies out there on esports coaching, whereas for traditional sports coaching, there's thousands and thousands of literature. And for esports coaching, there is no, in North America, there's no certifications or a program that makes you certified as an esports coach. But how do they get there? Where do they get the skills? Like, how did they start their journey in becoming esports coaches? So this is like, I'm a good example of how using my academic powers and figuring that out and exploring the space. And through this kind of activities, you get to learn a lot more of the collegiate esports spaces. And from what I'm finding is that I can't really discuss what the results is right now, but in a couple months you shall see. But I could tell you the collegiate esports spaces they have knowledge, and someone needs to go out and ask the right questions, do the studies, gather the data, so that we could build the best program.
Right. And there's a question that was kind of related to what we were talking about earlier for money and events. Would it be feasible to create a system where tournament and competition winnings are put towards tuition rather than payouts to players, like a direct sort of thing?
It's possible, but it's difficult to administrate. That's the challenge. It's a great idea. It's just we would have to then work with Ryerson's administrative IT staff, which is about 87 layers of 2-week bureaucracy, in order to implement new systems in the Ryerson pay structure. It's not impossible, but let's put it this way: if we were to start that conversation now, we get off this call and we start calling people to see if we could do that, it would be a long time before any students would see that realized. But it's a very good idea.
I think it'll be pressure on students as well. Like, it's not just one-way street. If you're given some sort of monumental finance, like any sponsors, then as a player, and as a brand, then you need to have your own social media channels that have so and so many followers, how much influence you have, why are we giving you this amount?
Yeah.
It's not just because you won one tournament. Like there is a give and take.
Yeah, there needs to be a return.
Yeah, it's much easier for the school to disperse funds from a pool than it is to administrate intake and then amend it within the system.
Y'all handled it. I don't have anything to add to that. Yo,
All
y'all
right.
got it.
All right, we got one more question. So how does the community and or the university ensure that esports are going to be open and inclusive to all members of our Ryerson community?
Good question.
Well, what I want to see is barrier free, of course, but at the same time, like what I think is barrier free might not be for someone else. And when it comes to making up those systems, it's having all the people, all different aspects of perspectives on that table first before we get started and we get rolling out. So that's what I want to see. Not just this higher up people saying make it happen and one or two people just show up, think what it's needed and rolls it out. I think to make the best infrastructure and be inclusive, we have to start everything right at the first go.
To use a great example, we at the previous institution I was at, this is again, shout outs to Kevin Tang because he's a monster. We set out to create a code of conduct at the team for all the teams universally. And to build it, Kevin read up on team code of conducts and institutional code of conducts from both the college institution, but also from other college institutions, leading groups in esports space like UCI down in the States, as well as professional sports code of conducts like FIFA, the NFL, and more, and took lessons learned from all of those different groups that have all had to do with this problem in the past and found a balance that seemed to work for the students. It then went through months of review by the students, by other faculty, and review, and before anybody was ever told, this is something we're going to work with. That was a very effective way to approach it.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like what they said, but also we are trying to make space that includes everybody, but we also have facilities and pipelines via Ryerson that we can connect with to help establish these frameworks. We have collegiate, we have casual, and we'll have likely something along the varsity or professional sphere. Everybody's allowed to play. That's the point of this. And again, to talk about research, we can ask these types of questions of the population and help establish frameworks based on the population's responses, if they're comfortable. That's sort of, we're trying to make substantiated decisions, and that's one way of doing it, asking people.
All right. I'm out of questions.
Well, thank you so much, everyone. I'm very happy to be here and answering all the questions. I think we got a really good turnout, and the questions that we were asked was on everybody's mind.
Yeah, we can't thank you enough. Like, this was the level of discourse that came from active participant questions as well as the pre-asked questions. This was beyond, I think, any of our dreams. This was a wicked first conversation to have.
I appreciate you all. And what you don't realize is this entire conversation is part of the research. We get to show this and explain to people this is the level of engagement we've had off of something that we're all connected to and love and wish to see at Ryerson University in a infrastructurally supported way.
Let alone the learning that's hopefully going to come from faculty and students and everybody else in the ecosystem watching this down the road. So thank you. We wouldn't have had these conversations without these amazing questions.
Yeah, that's real. That's real.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. We really appreciate all your questions. And yeah, that's all.